It was Martin Luther King that said, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in health is the most shocking and inhumane.
That we could live in the richest state, in the richest nation in the world, and yet people don't have access to health care. That is wrong. That is wrong.
There are many reasons why people are struggling, but we know that one of the most significant reasons that people struggle, that people go into bankruptcy, is medical bills. Because in this country, for far too long, instead of creating a true safety net to make sure that people have that fundamental right to health care, to be healthy as families, we have thrown people into to just defend for themselves. And the number of people in this country who have gone into bankruptcy, who have lost their homes, who have lost everything because they were the unlucky ones who didn't have insurance or didn't have good insurance and had an accident or an injury or a serious illness, and they went bankrupt. And that is a huge issue in this country.
We know that those who do not have access to care have significantly worse health outcomes and are disproportionately people of color and families from low-income communities. Americans continue to pay more than any other industrialized nation in the world for less care. How does this make sense? How does this make sense?
It's not right that the U.S. remains the only country in the industrialized world that has a for-profit healthcare delivery system that is unable to contain healthcare costs and has the lowest healthcare outcomes in the world.
So why do Canadians get access to prescription pharmaceutical drugs half the price we pay, a tenth of the price we pay? Why? It's the same drug. It's the same pharmaceutical. The difference is the Canadian government, with an organized healthcare system, gets the pharmaceutical producers to bid against each other.
So number one, we know that the Affordable Care Act itself is completely at risk. So we may lose all the gains that we got. And for our seniors and our low-income people that have Medi-Cal and Medicare, that may be at risk. So we as Californians may have to completely overhaul our healthcare system.
You see it with the people in this room, and we hear it from constituents all the time, is they just want certainty that they're going to be able to be taken care of when they're sick. They don't want to have to spend time trying to figure out how to buy insurance and where to put that money. And the system that seems to give everybody that is some form of single payer like they have in other countries.
I'm of the opinion, and I believe everyone else here is too, that universal health care is actually a right. Health care is a universal right, not an exclusive precondition for the wealthy. So it doesn't make a difference if you're on the left or the right or in the middle, whether you live in Central Valley or elsewhere. Everyone should have access to good quality health care. There's no doubt about that.
Health care is a right, not a privilege, and SB 562 is the way to get us to the place every other industrialized nation is, with lower costs and more uniform care, meeting the needs of all people.
I think there's a lot of mythology about the cost of single payer, that somehow we're adding on top of an existing multi-payer system, when in fact it's about reallocating existing resources and using them more effectively and more efficiently by replacing the current multi-payer system. The fact is we're already spending $367.5 billion a year on health care, according to UCLA, in this state, 70% of it borne by the taxpayers. A single-payer system drives down the cost of health care, drives down the cost of prescription drugs through economies of scale, and provides a more effective, efficient, and universal access for those that are uninsured. You still have 3 million people in the state of California without health insurance. And even through Color California, millions of others have seen double-digit increases over the course of the last few years in their premiums. Single payer is the way to go to reduce costs and provide comprehensive access.
California has the courage to say that it is time to finally remove the insurance companies from the decision-making of how we get care in this country. It is time to say once and for all that healthcare is a right, not a privilege for those who can afford it. It's time to give every California resident one plan and the ability to choose their doctor and their care. It is time to put doctors and nurses in charge, not insurance companies.
And the interesting thing is, when people were attacking the Affordable Care Act back when it was being proposed and in the legislative process, I remember there was a very famous, I think, sign someone was holding that had been fomented by the opposition to the ACA. Government, get your hands off, government, get your hands off my Medicare. Remember that sign, colleagues? We all saw it. Government, get your hands off my Medicare. People didn't even realize that Medicare was a government program that people made the same arguments against in the 1960s that we're hearing against single payer today, that it's some sort of socialistic takeover of the healthcare system, it's going to destroy everything. And we know that Medicare has made sure that seniors, and particularly low-income seniors in this country, are not impoverished and living in perpetual sickness simply because they are old and poor. We can get this right, and I think we will get this right.
We should commit to giving every citizen the best healthcare system that money can buy, and we just haven't made that commitment yet.
And I, for one, think that we need to be looking at and ought to be considering the idea of single payer in the state of California.
Not only do I feel that a single payer system would be the most efficient way to deliver our healthcare system, it may be a necessity, because we may be faced with a circumstance where the healthcare system as we know it is decimated by actions from DC. And we can't wait till all of that happens and then try to figure out a response. We need to be preparing now.
And we are going to do it. I have never felt so much excitement. I have been a single-payer, universal care proponent for decades.
It is time that the state of California usher in a new generation of leadership that has new ideas and fresh energy. That we have someone that stands on the sideline, on the front lines, not on the sidelines, when it comes to health care, single payer, SB 562 specifically, for all Californians, regardless of who you are and where you come from.
The single payer bill, the right thing to do. In fact, I've co-sponsored it every single year that I've been in Congress.
We can put California on the mark and ensure that California becomes the first state to have a single payer system.
We can come up with a great single-payer bill, and I urge your aye vote.
I urge an aye vote.
Medicare for all.